Hello and welcome to the WION Live Broadcast from London. I'm Oliver Regan and these are the headlines. Saudi Crown Prince MBS receives Chinese President at the Al Yamamah Palace, a visit that has demonstrated muscular outreach to the Arab world and earned a rebuke from Washington. Iran carries out its first known execution over protests sparked by Mahsa Amini's death, hanging a man convicted of blocking a street and wounding a paramilitary member. The Kremlin says it was vulnerable to Ukrainian attacks on the Crimean Peninsula after the Russian military downed a drone near its largest city. The lower house of the Russian parliament passes in the second and third readings a bill that bans foreigners from using Russian surrogate mothers. The much-awaited Harry and Meghan Netflix series is finally out. The first 3 episodes launched today. The Duke of Sussex compares his wife to his mother, Princess Diana, who died in a car crash while being chased by paparazzi in Paris. Since the start of the Ukraine war, there is a constant threat of nuclear catastrophe in Europe. Sometime either from shelling near to the nuclear power plants or the potential use of nuclear weapons. But in the latest developments, the Russian President Vladimir Putin stated that his forces will not use nuclear weapons to strike first, giving a sense of relief to the millions fearing nuclear disaster. Putin made these comments whilst addressing a meeting with members of his Human Rights Council, as he added any weapons that Russia possesses to defend itself in case of a foreign strike. According to Putin, the United States has deployed nuclear weapons in other countries and not Russia.
The American nuclear weapons in large numbers are located on the European territory. We don't give our nuclear weapons to anybody, and we are not going to do. But, of course, we will defend our allies with all available means if we need to. We don't deploy our nuclear weapons, including tactical nuclear weapons in other countries. But the Americans do in Turkey, in a number of other European countries as well.
The Russian president also acknowledged that the Ukraine war may continue for a long time, adding that there will be no second call-up of soldiers. Recently, Russia has been forced into a series of significant retreats in the face of Ukrainian counter-offensives. Meanwhile, the NATO Secretary-General, Jens Stoltenberg, says Russia is trying to have some kind of freeze of the war with Ukraine in order to prepare for a bigger offensive next spring.
What we see now is that Russia is actually attempting to try to have some kind of freeze of this war, at least for a short period of time, so they can regroup, repair, recover, and then try to launch a bigger offensive next spring. So what we do is that we support Ukraine in their right for self-defense. Ukraine is defending their own country, and NATO allies and partners are providing unprecedented support to those efforts by the Ukrainians.
Київ може бути не струмлений, без водопостачання, тепло.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole. Come to WION Health Resort. Make your reservation at WION.com.
It's code red for humanity. The alarm bells are deafening. Wildfires, floods, and hurricanes. Extreme climate events warn of impending doom. Is the world heading towards a climate catastrophe? Watch WION's Climate Tracker weekdays at 12 p.m. GMT, 5:30 p.m. IST.
You don't know how to fix the holes in our ozone layer. You don't know how to bring the salmon back up a dead stream. You don't know how to bring back an animal now extinct. And you can't bring back the forest that once grew where there is now a desert.
You have ignored us in the past and you will ignore us again. We have run out of excuses and we are running out of time.
Show us your faithfulness. Show us your trustworthiness. Show us your honesty. Prove us wrong. We desperately need you to prove us wrong. God help us all if you fail to prove us wrong. God help us.
Now, in the United Kingdom, nearly all sectors are planning to go on strike this Christmas season. And this, of course, poses a threat to the already weakened British economy and also the Rishi Sunak government. And now to tackle this crisis, the government is exploring on ways to restrict or even ban the right of ambulance workers and firefighters to go on a strike. Now, according to reports, several government departments are in fact working on options to toughen up new legislation. And this legislation will, of course, be designed to reduce the impact of industrial action. And Britain's Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has said that he will do whatever he can to try and minimise the disruptions in day-to-day life. Earlier, the chairperson of the Conservative Party, Nadhim Zahawi, had said that the British government is looking at bringing in the military to help keep public services running. If key workers, including in the state-run National Health Service, take strike action, according to the NHS England end of October data, an estimated 7.2 million people are in fact waiting to start treatment. And this is up from about 7.1 million in September and is the highest number since records began to be kept in August 2007. From nursing to postal services to railways to charity workers, nearly every sector in the United Kingdom is in fact planning to go on a strike over the Christmas period. And in the latest, Britain's Border Force staff are to strike over the busy festive holidays at airports across the country. And the United Kingdom's government is preparing for the airport strike by training about 600 soldiers to check passports instead. So this, of course, is what is unfolding in the United Kingdom, where different services across the United Kingdom have all announced that over the Christmas season they will be going on strike. And this, of course, is to try and ensure that the government can actually provide them with adequate wages, and also the work conditions that they say have deteriorated. Now, inflation has been a huge problem within the British society over the course of the last several months, and it remains to be seen as to how well the British government can in fact address some of these challenges which the British people have in fact expressed in the last few weeks and months. So it's going to be a very chaotic Christmas this time round in Britain, from the postal workers to fire services workers to workers in the health sector. Every single one of them across sectors in the United Kingdom have all said that they will be going on a strike. The British Prime Minister has refused to rule out a ban on strikes, and it remains to be seen as to how the British government will, of course, address this challenge, because this is not going to be sorted out anytime soon, and it remains to be seen as to what sort of a Christmas people in Britain will, of course, have, because it appears from the way things are panning out that it could be a very chaotic time. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom will lead the net zero mission, and that's what Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said at this year's COP27 summit. But within a month of that comment, his government has in fact approved a new coal mine project, something that has not been seen in the country in the last 3 decades. After being stalled for almost about a year, authorities have green-lighted a new mine in a county in northwest England, and it is set to dig up coking coal for steel production. So why is the United Kingdom taking a decision that goes against its own pledges? The supporters of the mine say that it will create about 500 jobs and also reduce coal imports. The government has said that there is currently a United Kingdom and a European market for coal, and on these lines, the mining company has confirmed that it will be used for steel making. But here's the catch. The government's advisory climate change committee has pointed out that 85% of the coal that is produced by the mine will be exported. And that's virtually most of it. And the only 2 companies that still make steel using coal in the United Kingdom are moving to cleaner alternatives. And industry experts have said that at best the firms will in fact use less than 10% of the output of the mine, and by the mid-2030s none of the coal will be needed. So this is clearly not a domestic need. Then why is the Rishi Sunak government willing to in fact forego its climate process, increase its emissions and also anger fellow activists? Well, we are not the only ones who are asking this question. There are members of parliament within the party who have also been raising some similar concerns. The Green Party in the United Kingdom has said that the government's environmental credentials are in complete tatters. In fact, they've alleged that this coal mine decision was cynically delayed. The government was waiting for UK's COP presidency to end, so at a time when the climate activists are hoping to shut coal mines and also to move to cleaner fuel, the United Kingdom is doing exactly the opposite of it. So it was a day of total political chaos in Peru. The country got its first female president, but there are no cheers in the streets. Protests and clashes have erupted across the country. It was anticipated to be a pretty tense day in Lima, but the crisis has snowballed even before the Congress gathered. For the third time since coming to power last year, Pedro Castillo was scheduled to face fresh impeachment charges. But just hours before the Congress was set to convene, Castillo made a last effort to try and stay on in power. He declared an emergency and tried to dissolve the Congress altogether, a move which is being called as an attempted coup by the opposition. But the Congress leaders were not having any of that. The leaders have called for an emergency session and held the impeachment vote against the sitting president, and the result was extremely overwhelming. 101 people voted in favour of ousting him, with only about 6 against and 10 abstentions. Soon after which, Castillo was of course seen in the police premises, and the prosecutors confirmed that he was detained. The former president has in fact been charged of rebellion and conspiracy for breaking the constitutional order, and he is seen being moved to a detention facility with former Prime Minister Aníbal Torres, and local media has reported that he will be moved to a police-run prison sometime later. The Vice President, Dina Boluarte, has been sworn in. The 60-year-old lawyer will govern until July 2026, which is when Pedro Castillo's presidency would have ended. Soon after taking office, she has called for a political truce across the political spectrum.
As we all know, there has been an attempted coup, an attempted push by Mr. Pedro Castillo, which has not found backing in the institutions of democracy and in the streets. This Congress of the Republic, by the constitutional mandate, has taken a decision, and it is my duty to act accordingly.
Now, in Peru, politics is as volatile as it can get. Boluarte is the 6th president of the country in 5 years, and in fact there was a time in 2020 when Peru saw 3 presidents within the space of 5 days. Now, most top leaders are battling corruption charges, and the non-ending political crisis is only added to the woes of the people. So expectedly, today's political drama soon transpired to protests in the capital, and supporters of ousted Castillo clashed with the riot police. The unrest also escalated when the officers stepped in with firecrackers, and the situation is still pretty tense in the front of the police station where Castillo was last seen. Meanwhile, South Korea has ordered the striking truckers in the steel and petrochemical industries to return to work starting today. This is the country's facing supply chain disruptions due to the prolonged nationwide strike. South Korea has widened its back-to-work order a week after the government issued a start-work order to force 2,500 striking drivers in the cement industry back on the road. The truckers in the steel and petrochemical industries have been ordered to join work. Failure to comply with the government decree can actually lead to cancellation of licenses, 3 years in jail, or a fine of up to about $22,550.
The government decided to widen a back-to-work order in the steel and petrochemical industries, comprehensively considering the damage and ripple effects of the refusal of collective transportation.
The government has said that its order has so far been effective in getting striking truckers back to work, but the union has said that they will in fact take legal action with the help of labour attorneys to defy the order. The strike is impacting the economy, and the government has said that steel shipments are running at 48% of normal levels. The shipments of petrochemical products have in fact fallen to about 20%. There are concerns that the disruptions can in fact hurt production of cars and ships. In fact, petrochemical companies are considering cutting production because of shortages of raw materials.
As shipments continue to be disrupted due to the suspension of logistics, there is a growing possibility that production will be disrupted from this weekend.
Now, this is the second strike by truckers in South Korea in less than 6 months. The truckers are demanding that a minimum wage program must be made permanent. The government has so far refused to agree to the demand, saying that it can't extend the program beyond the current 3 years. And there have been at least 2 rounds of negotiations, but there's been no breakthrough so far. And after surrounding himself in a number of different controversies, Twitter and Tesla chief Elon Musk is now back again with a new change in policy regarding Twitter functions. And in the latest, Twitter plans to change the pricing of its Twitter Blue subscription to $11 for iPhone users. Now, according to report, this is a jump from the $7.99 subscription rate, and the report has also stated that the move is likely a pushback against Apple's 30% cut on any payments made by users via apps on the iOS operating system. The report did not mention whether pricing would change for the Android platform as well, and last week, Elon Musk in a series of tweets had listed various grievances with Apple, which includes the 30% fee that the iPhone maker charges and software developers for the in-app purchases. However, Musk later met with Apple chief executive Tim Cook at the company's headquarters and later tweeted that the misunderstanding about Twitter being removed from Apple's App Store has now been completely resolved. Now, more than 40 manufacturers, shippers and industry groups including Siemens, Maersk and Unilever called on the EU to mandate that all freight trucks should be zero-emission models by the year 2035. In a letter that was published on Thursday, the group said that its signatories have urged the European Commission to set all new freight trucks on a path to zero emission from 2035 with a 5-year exemption for vocational vehicles such as construction, mining and timber trucks that will require longer to develop and produce at scale. A zero-emission strategy will determine as to how fast the EU transitions away from polluting fossil-powered trucks to clean zero-emission alternatives, and if the EU will lead or be left behind in this inevitable industrial transition. The Commission is currently working on proposals for carbon dioxide reduction targets for freight trucks and the infrastructure to charge electric or fuel hydrogen-powered heavy-duty vehicles. While there are a large number of electric passenger car models either on the market or coming over the next few years, and there are very few zero-emission heavy-duty models that are currently available. Now, the signatories of the letter called on the European Commission to in fact raise the 2030 carbon dioxide reduction target for freight trucks to 65% below the emission levels in 2019. Well, that's all the time we have in this edition of the News Bulletin. Stay tuned to WION.
Many other